I wholeheartedly agree that unfortunately in our ummah as a whole, we don't necessarily respect the responsibilities, the religious responsibilities, and then by extension the societal and the familial and the work ethic that we have and those kind of responsibilities. But unfortunately, I feel like we neglect to talk about the male half of the ummah, which I don't think, and with all due respect to all the brothers here, but I think in general we tend to overlook the fact that they are heavily neglecting their responsibilities, and that a lot of the responsibilities that women have taken on have been in part because of that. So for example, because of a lack of implementation in proper divorce or a lack of implementation in proper inheritance. And I think that we should probably, maybe we can talk a bit more about how we need to re-educate, yes, the women, but also the men on their responsibilities and on women's rights and on how they should treat women in our religion and in our faith. I think that that would be a nice thing, inshallah.
I couldn't agree with you more, Ala. Really. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. You know, Al-Hallaj, his sister, she didn't used to wear a hijab in Baghdad. And somebody asked her about it once. She said, "There's no men in Baghdad. Why do I have to wear a hijab?" She said, "The only man is my brother, and he's my mahram." That's a true story. She said, "The hijab is for rijal." She said, "I don't see any rijal." He said, "Ha'ula awlad." They're all children. Yeah. That's not an excuse to take off your hijab. Any other questions? Comments? I don't mind comment. That was more of a comment, and I agree with it. So, mudakhala are fine with me as well. If you have something you want to say.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
I heard you say quickly, kind of, money is more important than knowledge.
Right.
Could you comment on that?
That what is?
Money is more important than knowledge?
That was a slip of the tongue if I said that. No, he was saying knowledge is more important than money. Yeah, that was a slip of the tongue. If I said that, zallatul lisan, sabqul lisan they call it. Yeah, so. You ready to give some blood? Any other question or mudakhala?
Sayyidi, you said from the Ihya Ulumuddin that taking ujra in teaching deen is not good. From the Tasawwuf side, but there's one thing I just wanted to get clarification from you. We have this hadith of which I don't know its daraja. Rasulullah says, خَيْرُ مَا أُخِذَ بِهِ الْأُجْرَةُ كِتَابُ اللَّهِ.
Yeah, and that's what they use as the proof. There's different interpretations of that hadith. It's a sound hadith, but there's different interpretations of that hadith, and that was a big debate in the early period, but it was pretty much resolved. Again, he's dealing with an ideal. Taqashuf was very important to him. He really felt that the ulama, in a sense, he got to a point in his life where it was almost like, to give a modern example of, like Gandhi, where he was saying, if you really want to transform yourself and have an effect on other people, you really have to walk the walk and walk the talk and live your truth. Otherwise, he said, you're just not going to have that impact. So in the next chapter, he mentions about Imam Malik, in fact, it's a very nice letter, but it's a famous letter from one of the, Yahya bin Yazid bin Abdul Malik. He was a zahid, and he wrote a letter to Imam Malik, and he said, من يحيى بن يزيد بن عبد الملك إلى مالك بن أنس أما بعد فقد بلغني أنك تلبس الدقاق وتأكل الرقاق وتجلس على الوطاء وتجعل على بابك حاجبا وقد جلست مجلس العلم وضربت إليك المطيء وارتحل إليك الناس واتخذوك إماما ورضوا بقولك فاتق الله تعالى يا مالك وعليك بالتواضع كتبت إليك بالنصيحة مني كتابا ما أطلع عليه إلا الله ما اطلع عليه إلا الله تعالى والسلام فكتب إليه مالك. So he wrote a letter and he said, "Oh Malik ibn Anas, this is from Yahya ibn Yazid. It has reached me that you wear fine clothes and you eat refined bread and you sit on carpets and you have a chamberlain at your door," like somebody that, you had somebody that let people in and out, like a butler today. "And you sit in the majlis of knowledge and beasts are struck to get to you and people go long distances to take from you and they have taken you as an imam and they are content with your words. So have fear of God. Fattaqillah." He's telling Malik ibn Anas, have fear of God and you should be more humble. So and he said, "I have written this as sincere advice. And this letter, no one has seen it except Allah, and peace be upon you." So Malik wrote back to him, "Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Min Malik ibn Anas ila Yahya ibn Yazid, salamullah alayk, amma ba'd. It has reached me your letter, and وقع مني موقع النصيحة في الشفقة والأدب أمتعك الله بالتقوى." It's a beautiful response. He's saying that I see in this letter sincerity and general concern and adab. May Allah always delight you with piety. Jazakallah bin nasiha khayra. May Allah reward you for this sincere advice. Look at the humility of the man. He didn't say, "How dare you, I'm Malik ibn Anas." وأسأل الله تعالى التوفيق, and I ask Allah to give tawfiq. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. أما ما ذكرت لي أني آكل الرقاق. As for what was mentioned that I eat refined bread, they call cornflakes raqa'iq. I thought that was a bad ta'rib, but it's actually probably a good one. وألبس الدقاق, and I wear fine clothes. وأحتجب وأجلس على الوطاء, and I do sit on carpets, and I have a chamberlain. ونحن نفعل ذلك ونستغفر الله. We do that and we ask Allah's forgiveness. وقد قال الله تعالى قل من حرم زينة الله التي أخرج لعباده والطيبات من الرزق. Say, who can prohibit the ornaments of God that He has brought forth for His servants and the good from provision. وإني لأعلم أن ترك ذلك خير من الدخول فيه. And I am well aware that to avoid these things is better than to enter into them. ولا تدعنا من كتابك فلسنا ندعك من كتابنا. And please don't cut us off with your letters, and we won't cut you off from our letters. والسلام. So he says, فانظر إلى إنصاف مالك إذا اعترف أن ترك ذلك خير من الدخول فيه وأفتى بأنه مباح وقد صدق فيهما جميعا. So look at Malik's, his fairness in admitting that to avoid these things was better than to get into them, but also the fatwa that they were permitted. And they're both right. Both of the men were right. One of the things that, Abu al-Hasan al-Shadhili, he removed the muraqa'a. The people of tasawwuf before Abu al-Hasan al-Shadhili, most of them used to wear patched robes. Abu al-Hasan al-Shadhili changed that, because in the earlier period, people respected the people for that, because they saw it as humility. Just like the masses, they loved Gandhi in India, but a lot of the rich and the wealthy had utter contempt for him. But when he would walk amongst the masses of Indians, they would come out in throngs. They loved him because he was one of them. He lived like them. And that was his point. He was a very highly educated lawyer. He wasn't from the Brahmin class. He was a third class in the hierarchy of Hinduism. He was from the Vaishya class. So he was actually from the merchant class, not from the warrior class is over them, the Kshatriya and then the Brahmin. So he was a third class, but highly educated. He'd been educated in England. But he sewed his own, he wove his own textiles, he made his own clothes. If you, at the museum in India, you can see what he left behind. I mean, it's pretty amazing. He had no property, absolutely no property. So the poor people would respect him, but the wealthy people had a lot of contempt for him. And that's the way these some of these people were, they began to see this as a very low thing. So Abu al-Hasan al-Shadili had his fuqara wear nice clothes. And it became, a path of scholarship, and he encouraged education. It was very important, and those things. So times change, and people have to be realistic. Like I said, he puts forward a lot of ideals. In terms of money, it's very important that if that's a goal, if people are trying to get rich through the religion, that it's a very dangerous state to be in, and they should be doing other things if they want to earn dunya. But Allah also takaffala rizqa talib al-ilm. Allah takes care of the provision of a seeker of knowledge. If you seek knowledge sincerely, you should believe that your provision will come to you. And he has a beautiful letter from Hatim al-Asam, beautiful, one of the great scholars from Balkh. He was from Afghanistan. And Ahmad ibn Hanbal praised him very highly. So he mentions the 8th thing he learned from Ma'ruf al-Karkhi, another great Afghan scholar and zahid. But Hatim was a scholar, and he was more known for his tasawwuf. They call him the deaf one because he was in his majlis. This woman came to ask a question, and she passed wind, and she became very ashamed. And so he said, "Could you raise your voice in the question, because I have some summum in my ear, I can't hear." He was trying to just make her feel less conscientious. And so he got that nickname, Al-Asam. He wasn't actually deaf, but he just did it out of adab to let the person just feel less conscientious. So, anyway. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. جزاكم الله خيرا. What's that? Oh, one more question?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Go ahead.
Actually, I was going to latch on to the question that Sister Ala said. You said you agreed with her, but then that's a bit abrupt of an ending. So do you have any advice to give either to sisters or brothers? Or I know you have sons,
I think I actually feel sorry when I look out there. I feel sorry. I see a lot of really decent, unmarried, pious women that are having really hard time finding spouses, finding people that are compatible intellectually. We have a lot of highly educated women. I'll give you an example. In my own country, we have women that are from South Asia that grew up in America, and they're strong women, because they grow up in an environment where women are encouraged to be forthright, and so a lot of men will go back home to find the village girl that's going to do everything he tells her to do, because he doesn't want to deal with but what he'll find out is after 10 years, the village girl is going to be just like it just takes a little more time, right, to get there. So, I really think that's one of the reasons why the Prophet ﷺ married Khadija. She was an older woman. She was very self-assured. He was never intimidated by strong women. He encouraged their strength. And I think Khadija was what enabled him to feel at ease with strong women, because she was such a strong woman, amazing woman. She was an entrepreneur. She was the one that he went to for advice. She took him to Waraqa. She was the one that knew what to do when he was struggling. She was the one that encouraged him and told him, "No, this is your Lord's not going to abandon you, and here's the reasons why." So when Aisha comes along, who was a firebrand, Aisha is just amazing, intellectually curious, brilliant, forthright, had no qualms about challenging the Prophet ﷺ about things. It's very clear from the hadith, and she's amazing. He didn't crush her spirit. He encouraged it. It's very clear. And she ended up leading an army. That's how self-confident she was. Even though she was wrong in that position, just the fact that she did it is amazing. So So, I think we need, men that are, willing that we have to recognize the age we're living in. We're living in a very different time, and, we have to come to terms with the time, and we have to rise up to the challenges of the time. And part of the challenges is that we need new models for having successful marriages, because the old models worked well in a different world. The world made a lot more sense, it was easier to navigate, roles were much more well-defined. That's no longer the case anymore. So these are difficult times for us, but we have to rise up to the challenges, and part of that is, again, it goes back to these basic principles: purification of the self, getting control of the self, setting aside egos, because the nafs al-amara and the nafs is at the root of a lot of these problems. So, we need a lot of education. We need to educate the men and the women, and ourselves. I mean, the educators need to be educated.